Hi folks, and welcome. Deb can show you the panoramic view of the Sierra Nevadas. So that's kind of what we're still up against. But it's not flames, it's smoke, so we're happy. I want to start off by mentioning the Florida connection I got. I had a couple folks send me things and I got to read up on the history. The reason I'm so adamant about Florida, you guys, is because of the Spanish connection. And what I learned after reading and all that good stuff that everybody sent me is that I'm always looking for the difference of why the California style is what it is. Okay? Well, a big reason is because California was not a hard thing to do. In other words, the ranchers had the beautiful Mediterranean climate, they had the grass and the cattle, and they came with cattle, and they had some kind of law and order through the church and then through the Spanish land grants. So the difference was in Florida, the Spanish deal didn't work out all that well. And they pulled out, but of course they left the horses and the cattle. And Miss Sims was a lady in Indiantown, Florida that I got the opportunity. She gave us a ranch tour and showed us the Criollo cattle, or Creole cattle as she called them. And a Criollo is an animal that's born in a country whose parents are from another country, or at least one of them. And that's why they call the horses in Mexico Criollos, the ones that are out of different breeds. And anyway, there's Criollo cattle, Criollo horses. But what I did learn was that Florida was affected by the Civil War, and the big cattlemen at one time were the Seminoles, the ones that they didn't take to Oklahoma. And their market was Cuba. California didn't have a market. All they had was a hide and tallow trade. So there's a lot of differences. And then the people that came down into Florida, the pioneers, they were on their own. They were hung out. And a lot of them, they did it on purpose. They wanted to get away from the South, Georgia, Alabama, the Carolinas. And they came down into Florida to have their own deal going. And they were tough. They had to be tough or they died. And there wasn't a whole lot of, there wasn't any cops, there wasn't any sheriffs, there wasn't any law. Everybody was on their own. And then after the Civil War, there was a lot of people moved down there to get a fresh start because the South took a hit after the war as far as economy and everything else. And also, there were a lot of people from the Civil War that were outlaws that came down there because they figured it was easy pickings getting the free cattle they heard about. Which to them meant the Indians didn't have any rights and they could kill the Indians and take their cattle and it was no big deal. Plus, they stole from the settlers. So the settlers dealt with it themselves. So that's a whole different concept than California. And that's what I take away from it, is the difference between Florida and California. So, Doyle Rigdon is a cowboy poet. And you figured out by now that I'm literal. And what it means, he's a cowboy that's actually a poet. And he's on the same line as Baxter as far as I'm concerned, with the fact that he tells exactly, you can tell when they talk that they've been there. And if you want to get the real story on the Florida way, as it's called, because they are their own selves. They got their own style of cowboy, and everything they do is their own style that they've created over the years. Doyle sent me this, and he didn't tell me to plug it or nothing. I'm just telling you that if you want to get the real story and get a good sense of humor out of it, and the facts about cowboying in Florida, this is what you want to do. It's Doyle Rigdon. And Doyle, I want to thank you for all the things you sent to me because it really helped me close the gaps in what I've been trying to learn. So much with Florida. Now I'm moving on to Louisiana is my next quest again. And our thoughts go out to those folks in Louisiana that had that hurricane come right up the middle of them. So I hope it wasn't too bad on you. So you're going to get 18 inches of rain, and we've never seen 18 in the last 40 years. So there you go about the United States. Now the next thing I wanted to touch on was we had you know, I showed you dragging the poles out of the brush, and I just thought I'd share that with you because I'm trying to get my colt gentle. And then, of course, there's the reality that I never thought about. And several people wanted to know why I put the bowline, the loop that I drug the pole with, on the back buck instead of the front one. So I'm going to go ahead and explain that. As you know, whenever I think of a ranch horse. And what I'd like you to watch and appreciate is the fact that, believe it or not, in the branding pen, when we're heeling, sometimes, I know it's strange, but sometimes we only get 1 foot. And the crew's so sick of watching you miss, they holler, bring them. Bring it, we'll get it. You know, it's like, fine, okay. So you take one in by 1 foot, and you got 2 choices when you have one hind foot. You can take off at a trot, and they'll usually lay down, you just pull them right up to the fire, or you can walk slow, and they just kind of bounce around. It's your call. Well, the word bounce around is part of the, someday I'm going to not catch 2 feet every time. I know that's hard to swallow, but what happens when you only catch one hind leg and you're just walking is the rope bounces. Okay, I tie the pole to the narrow end, not the big end. So the heavy end is on the far end of the pole, and the small end's in the front, so that it makes the rope go up and down. This horse gets that feeling of this rope going up and down with just a pole behind it instead of a calf. That's part of it. The other one is it's math. If you like math like I do, you'll be able to see that the angle of why I put the rope on there is more conducive to left eye, right eye, left eye, right eye. The whole time I'm going into camp, that pole is switching eyes. So you saw me, I just dropped the loop over it. My pole's back here. And if you watch the arc of the rope, I'm in the right eye. Now as the horse is walking along, the pole bounces around, now I'm in the left eye. And I've got this absolutely perfectly clear angle with my rope. There's nothing to stop it. Now the odds of this horse getting rim fired are pretty slim. He's been roped under the tail, and I've already done that. But what I want to show you is that if I would have put it on the front buck, and it would have been here, then the pole would have tended to stay in the left eye. Because it would get this far, and then it would want to go back down again. And it's harder to get it to come across to the right eye. Now, I hate to be Captain Obvious, but I'm walking through this just because people asked. So, moral of the story is, if you're going to do this, put it on the back buck. And what happens is the pole does this while he's walking. If you'll notice in the video, it's bouncing. I want him to get used to that bouncing so that he doesn't get all bothered and sell out when I'm dragging the calf by one hind leg. Because all you're doing is basically slapping your horse. And if you don't pay attention to what you're doing, hold your dallies right, you can get into trouble. But that's another story. Anyway, that's why I tied it back here. Now what we're working on today is side passing. And if you'll remember from me sitting on the chair asking this colt to come ahead and then working on picking me up, it's evolution. There's a method to my madness. I do things in steps, and if you'll watch the next exercise, you'll notice that the things I've been already working on are incorporated into the next exercise. Side passing is a very important thing to get taken care of on the ground before you ride them. Because what you're doing is the horse is showing you that they can connect their brain to their feet. So if you have a horse that's never done it before, you just simply put their head against the fence. And what I'm thinking about it, it's kind of like me putting the rope on the back sawbuck. There's a lot going on here. There's small, tiny things. But what I'm after really is when I side pass against a fence, I'm looking for collection. And when a horse settles in their mind and know they can't put their head over the top of a fence, they start to tip their nose in if you can keep them up close to the fence. And that's when you first start collection on a horse in groundwork. And they find out that when they do go into collection, side passing, their feet are more accurate. So whether it happens or not, I don't know. So far, what I've done with this colt, he hadn't made one attempt at collection, but he might. So just be watching for it. If I say the word there, it meant he got his nose in and lifted himself up for the occasion. So I'm going to just work on side passing. And when this is done correctly, it's done with one hand when you get done. So I'm giving direction, and here's impulsion. Now the horse can't go through the fence. My right hand is at my side. Now, remember picking me up? I'll send the horse again the other way. Now, with perpetual motion, as he comes into position, I just step into him and ask. Now, there's a difference between a diagonal and side passing. Side passing is when the front and hind legs are in line and they're crossing. So now I'm going to ask again. And as you watch the feet, also watch my hands and the nose of the horse. Exhale. In the eye. See his head's over the fence? I just bump him. I don't want his head over the fence. There's the first step of collection. Hindquarter, eye, over the fence. You don't let them side pass with their head over the fence. Eye, open hand, eye. I'm pushing on the eye. Hip, hip, eye. Now you can go all the way around the corral if you want. And if you got a dead-sided horse, then you can swing your lead rope and do whatever it takes. But you don't need a stick or a carrot or a string or nothing. All you need to do is show up and have some presence. One last time, then I'll go to the poles. Exhale to let him know it ain't a fight. Drive the hip over, stepping into the eye. He puts his head over, I bump it. Now watch his nose. There, right there. Boom, bump it back. So you not only watch the feet, you've got to keep an eye on the whole horse. I'm trying to put him in a frame. Drive. I don't want the nose tipped. I want the body straight. There. Hip. Hip. Hip was a little bit behind that time. Now I say the word a little bit behind. Please do not turn it into a drill. A drill meaning that you're not going to quit until you get it correct. Well, correct is relative. I'll say it again. Perfection is highly overrated. If you torture a horse until they do it perfect when they had no idea when you started what the hell you wanted, then you have now created resentment. There's a fine line between a horse going sure and a horse going, I don't like this. They don't like any of it. It's just like going to school. Hell, I'd just soon be in recess. But the fact is, you don't want to turn them into an enemy because you don't have the patience to try it another time and allow them to give time to think it over. So now, I'm going to go on the pole. And I don't have a fence. I am, in fact, the fence. Now, you can guess the next deal is going to be when I'm done, the logs are going to be set here in a circle, and this horse is going to do the logs. Now, he already knows what I want. Now, once again, little trivia. If you watch my hands, I stay below my belt. I try to keep my hands quiet until I actually need something from the horse. Then when I do, it means something. It's no different laying the reins on the neck. So I'm about to ask the horse to go towards the camera. Exhale. Offer. Impulsion is my left hand. Not allowing the horse to back up. The hip is late. Move the hip over. Don't let the horse walk over the log. Now, relax. Remember this thing of me sitting in the chair? That horse stays out where it belongs. Now, you remember me having to pick me up? I sent him down the other end. Now I'm going to get in the other eye and say, my left hand just gave you the direction I want you to go. Here comes my right leg. Excuse me, this actually, my right hand means my left leg. That's into pressure. That's what they're going to do when you ride them. Tip the nose, ask the hip to move over. Now, I want you to understand, if you have to walk all the way back there and knock your hip over, fine. But when you're done, you want to be out in front doing side passing, standing in front of the horse. Not walking alongside like you did on the fence. That's kindergarten. Now, I need the hip to catch up at the front end. Tip the nose. Move the hip. Move the hip. Here it comes, horse. There. Now, don't get bothered. Now leave. Pressure. Pressure. Here it comes. Thank you. See, my left hand is open. There. I want to get back out in front where I belong. Hip. Right hind is stuck still. There. Here it comes. Here it comes. And you're not done yet. Good. Release. Exhale. My hands are back in the no, do nothing position. Horses are very observant. I mean, look at the way they spook. They get this, what I'm doing with my hands. I'm about to leave. Direction. Impulsion. Now, I don't want to use my leg and my spur if I don't need it. And what you want to know is that he actually wants in, okay? He knows not to come all the way in because I don't want him all the way in. But he wants to be rewarded because it's over. Well, okay, there's your reward, horse. That's it. It's called a release. Now, I need you to go the other way with some kind of accuracy. Direction. See, I just gave him the way I want to go. Now, last time the hip didn't make it. Here it comes. Get your right hind leg working. Now let's go. Keep up the impulsion. Hip. Hip. Good. Go with it. Now I'm sure you noticed absolutely no collection involved. None. Well, too bad. That'll come later. I've already got a hint of it on the fence. If you try to get collection staying in front of a horse, you're going to drive them backwards. So just put the collection in the back of your brain. This is about accuracy with the feet. Now, I'm going to ask the horse to join me. I'll break the pattern and ask him to come on in so that he separates the difference between the side passing and the coming in. He knows the difference. He just proved to me that he has a brain and he gets it. Now, I don't need you in my lap. Thank you. He thinks I'm going to ask him to side pass. Get it? I'm just going to tell him with my breathing and the position of my hands. You don't do anything. You're off. Being off, clocked out, release, look at my right hand rope, to me is more important than any part of the training. When I release, you're off. Don't think, don't worry. Then for years, you won't have to deal with anxiety or being bothered. So that's the point of side passing. It's all part of building up to riding. I want all this stuff in place before I get on. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be started really well. So as you can guess, the space between the logs, I've already set it up. For my next operation, that'll be rear end, front end through the hole. So we'll catch up with you later. Adios.